Today, we are examining a submitted draft that analyzes the political perspectives of MK Tali Gotliv, focusing specifically on her recent media appearances regarding her indictment and her clashes with the Israeli legal and security establishment. So, a key theme running through this material seems to be the sheer volume of her rhetoric, which leads us right into our first critique.
The overwhelming presence of the subject's unfiltered, highly emotive voice risks drowning out the author's own analytical perspective.
Yeah. Let's really unpack the weakness here, because this is just a fascinating trap that writers often fall into when they're covering these highly vocal, populist political figures.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time. Right now, the drafted text acts almost as a pure megaphone for Gotliv's dramatic declarations, you know?
Right. We're seeing these massive, uninterrupted blocks of her broadcast rhetoric just dominating the page.
Exactly. And because the author's voice is entirely subsumed by Gotliv's explosive rhetoric, the piece feels significantly more like a transcription of her broadcast than a curated, insightful political analysis.
Yeah, the writer's voice basically vanishes. You lose the guide entirely.
You do. The reader is just left standing in the blast radius of her words, which is not ideal for actual analysis.
So how do we fix that? What's the structural suggestion here?
Well, the suggestion is to establish a stronger authorial distance. You have to summarize the bulk of her rhetoric in your own voice and then utilize her direct quotes strictly as punctuation for your own analytical points.
Got it. So you're not letting her drive the narrative vehicle at all.
Exact. So, for concrete examples, instead of quoting her entire sprawling monologue about bringing the Attorney General to her knees, or, her detailed promise to provide a victory picture for the right-wing public.
Which goes on for paragraphs in the draft.
Right, exactly. Instead of doing all that, you summarize her strategy to weaponize the Knesset Committee hearing. Then you use just the specific phrase, victory picture, as a punchy quote to highlight her political framing.
Ah, I see. That's a great way to handle it.
Yeah, and we should make sure the listener knows this is just one of many possible ways to regain narrative control over a highly vocal subject.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. But what if the author intentionally wants the raw intensity of Gotliv's voice to shock the reader? I could easily see a writer thinking that if they step in and paraphrase, they lose the essence of her disruptive nature, you know?
Well, I completely understand that instinct because it feels like you're preserving authenticity. But without a calm, contrasting, analytical voice guiding the reader, the shock value simply diminishes into chaotic noise.
Oh, interesting. So it actually backfires.
Exactly. If everything is turned up to an 11 constantly, the reader becomes desensitized. The contrast between a measured, objective, authorial voice and her extreme statements is what creates the actual impact.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And honestly, once the author regains narrative control, they must carefully choose where to direct the reader's focus, moving away from a narrow view.
Which brings us directly to our next point. The narrative relies too heavily on a singular conflict with the Attorney General, missing the opportunity to explore the broader institutional warfare present in the text.
Right, because right now, the current focus zeroes in almost exclusively on her battle with Gali Bahar Miara.
It really does. And the weakness there is that Gotliv actually targets a massive array of state institutions. By focusing only on the AG, the draft severely narrows the true scope of Gotliv's anti-institutional rebellion.
It's like analyzing a chess match and only looking at the opponent's queen, while entirely ignoring the rooks, knights, and bishops that Gotliv is actively trying to knock off the board, like Shigma Bressler in the military leadership.
Vendetta against one official, but as a calculated rebellion against the entire defense, intelligence, and legal establishment.
So, what would be some concrete examples of how to expand that scope in the draft?
Well, you need to group her varied attacks together to show a wider strategy. For instance, tie her accusations against Shin Bet head Ronan Bar together with their fierce criticism of Defense Minister Israel Katz.
Oh, right, because with Ronan Bar, she's claiming that he illegally leaked classified info to journalist Ronan Bergman, right?
Yes, exactly. She's accusing the head of internal security of being a leaker. And then she pivots to attack Defense Minister Israel Katz for signing a gag order hiding October 7th intelligence.
Right, like that green sardine file at 3:30 in the morning.
Exactly. She is basically positioning herself as a whistleblower against the state's own defense mechanisms. And note that highlighting her defense of Agent A against the Shin Bet is just one possible example of how to showcase her broader strategy to usurp the authority of the security establishment.
Wow, yeah. Understanding that Gottlieb is fighting a multi-front institutional war makes it critical to examine the specific weapons she uses, which leads to distinguishing fact from rhetoric.
The material effectively captures the subject's defiant tone, but struggles to separate her political rhetoric from the underlying legal mechanism she references.
Let's look at the weakness here, because this is huge. The draft basically blindly conflates Gottlieb's political goals with actual legal facts.
It does. Her claims regarding substantive immunity, gag orders, and Supreme Court injunctions are presented purely through her highly partisan lens, lacking any objective, factual grounding for the reader.
So the reader just absorbs her highly subjective version of the law as if it were absolute reality.
Exactly. The suggestion is to introduce a distinct analytical layer that clearly delineates Gottlieb's political theater from the objective legal frameworks operating in the background.
So the writer has to play referee, basically.
Right. As a concrete example, you have to provide brief, clarifying context before presenting her claims. Take the Knesset immunity law, for instance.
Oh, the one where the rules changed recently?
Yes. You need to clarify the actual shift in the immunity law, where MKs must now actively request immunity within 30 days, rather than the AG asking to lift it, before diving into her claim that her misdemeanor indictment for revealing Bressler's partner is a bad faith trap.
Got it. So you establish the factual baseline first.
Yes. Or, alternatively, when discussing the appointment of Roman Goffman as Mossad head, clearly separate the administrative reality that there was no formal high court injunction against it from her political gloating against Daphne Barak heiress.
Because she spins a standard lack of an order nisi into a massive ideological victory.
Precisely. And we should emphasize that adding these legal clarifications are just a few ways to ground the piece in reality.
That makes sense. But could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like maybe injecting dry legal facts might slow down the pacing of the political drama. I mean, it's a high-octane situation she's creating.
I get why you'd ask that, but I argue that it actually heightens the drama by clearly exposing exactly how she bends those legal realities to fit her narrative. The friction between the dry law and her fiery interpretation is the core of the analysis.
Oh, that's a great point. That friction is everything.
All right, let's pull all of this together with a rapid recap.
Sounds good.
First, establish authorial distance by summarizing rhetoric rather than overquoting. Second, expand the analytical scope to include her broader war against the defense establishment, like Ronan Bar and Israel Katz. And third, strictly delineate objective legal frameworks from her political theater.
Perfect summary. And honestly, the source material here is so incredibly robust, the author has a fantastic foundation to build upon.
Totally agree. We invite you to implement these structural changes and submit the revised work back to the critique for further exploration.